by Adam Boulton, a security developer and senior security consultant at Corsaire. A little background on Adam. He worked in IT since 2004 and has been programming since 2001. He graduated from Sheffield Hallam University with a first-class business. What was this?
Want me to do the introduction?
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, guys. I'll come on to my profile shortly. So how many publicly known exploits are there for Java RMI? I'll tell you there's 0 that have actually been published, which is kind of strange.
Use the microphone. Yeah, and we are recording,
can
so
you
have to kind of not wander.
Okay, you can hear me now at the back? Yeah?
Maybe just take it off of there and walk away.
Is that okay now? I'll just speak really loud then, okay? So there's no publicly known exploits for Java RMI, which is kind of really strange because Java RMI is not a new kind of technology kind of service. It's been around for kind of 6-7 years, and I've been looking at it for around 2 months now, and I found at least 4 exploits that I'm going to be releasing kind of the advisories for in the following weeks. But today I'm going to kind of show you how to attack an RMI service. This is going to be a kind of new tool which I'm going to go over today. But before we get into all the technical detail, I'll just go over my profile. So I work for a UK-based security company called Corsaire. I'm hired as a principal security consultant and research developer, and my roles range from anything from web application security assessments to reverse engineering, C++ code assessments, and developing some in-house tools, and I'm going to demonstrate one to you today. And before Corsaire, I worked for the antivirus company Sophos as a virus analyst, where I would reverse engineer malware, understand its behavior and its characteristics, produce disinfection and reliable detection for the engine, and some of you have no doubt read some of the Sophos reports about malware. So it was kind of doing that on a day-to-day basis. That's where I got a lot of my core reverse engineering skills from. And then before Sophos, I worked for the UK government, the Ministry of Defence, where I got my security clearance. So this allows me to do UK government work. And in terms of more formal background, I graduated with a software engineering degree, and since then I've become a certified secure code assessor. And some of you may know about the Owasp Java Gotchas page, which I recommend you should check out. I'm a big Java fan, I love Java development and all the technologies. Now the Owasp Java Gotchas page is all about kind of little things you wouldn't expect in Java, some things that happen at the lower kind of API level. So I've been going through the API and discussing about some kind of things that are going to catch developers out and things you want to look for during a web application security assessment. So today we're going to look at remote method invocation. So before I start with that, how many people have actually heard of Java RMI before? Excellent. How many people have actually developed RMI services? Excellent, okay. And who is actually running RMI services in their company or have any live RMI services on the net or internally? We've got a couple, okay. Okay, so we're going to talk about RMI and kind of what it is. I'm going to be discussing the RMI architecture, going through all the different layers. I'm going to be looking at where the flaws actually lie within the RMI architecture, and unfortunately it's not actually the developer level so much, it's actually its Sun's implementation. So when you start developing your RMI application, it's already flawed from day one. It's a great start. Then we're going to look at attacking an RMI service with RMI Spy, which is the new suite of tools I've developed, which Corsair use internally when we're actually performing RMI assessments. Okay. So I'm going to set up an RMI service today, and we're going to actually run through a full security assessment. And then most importantly, we're going to look at how to secure your RMI services. So what is remote method invocation? It's Sun's answer to distributed computing. It's all about hosting remote objects and talking on an object level. Like I said, it's not a new service brought to you by Sun. It's been around 6 or 7 years. So many of you who've developed are going to be familiar with the Java RMI package, which is where all the API and all the kind of functionality you need to set up your RMI service. And if you're not familiar with kind of distributed computing, there's a few kind of technologies you can think of that you may be familiar with, like Microsoft.NET Remoting, RPC, DCOM, Corba. And if you're still not familiar with them, just think web services, this idea that there's kind of logic hosted on a remote server and you interact with it as if it existed locally. So in particular with RMI, it's about communicating between two JVMs. So you get this idea that only kind of one JVM exists. All the interaction happens over a network transparently. And the functionality you develop is all at the object level. So you develop your business logic layer and you host it remotely, and all the clients interact with it as if the object existed locally. And RMI is able to do this by using its own proprietary protocol, using object serialization, writing objects to the wire and reading them back off. And RMI is, I think, is a fantastic kind of service, extremely transparent. You don't need to become involved with any socket connections, reading bytes off the wire. So Sun really kind of went out to develop a service that was reliable, that was work that was easy to set up. This is what they stated in their specification, and I think they did a fantastic job with it. And for those of you who have developed RMI applications, you know it can be a little tricky to get started, but once you've implemented the service, it works really well, and it's kind of really seamless. But this does introduce a kind of security risk. When you read a lot of RMI, or when people are taught about RMI services, it normally starts off with you have your server object and your client object, and then the rest is kind of magic, how it actually communicates. Well guys, it's not magic, and there's actually a lot of security vulnerabilities that exist in these lower layers. So unfortunately, it gives the developer a sense of this security through obscurity. No one knows what happens at lower layers, because you don't have to become involved in it as a developer to kind of meet your deadlines to finish your development project. So let's take a look at the RMI architecture, and we're going to identify where some of the flaws are. So as a developer, you would put together your business logic. This is your server object. And this is where you yourself would actually use the Java RMI packages and develop your business logic layer. And then you have what's called the skeleton. And this is actually generated to you by Sun in version 1.1 of RMI. Version 1.2, you don't actually need the skeleton. But we're going to concentrate on 1.1 today, as the concepts don't differ too much. So at the skeleton layer, this is where developers don't need to become involved. This is all generated. And this is about marshalling and unmarshalling all your calls and your data. So this is kind of where some of this apparent magic happens. It's going to do all the kind of reading off the network, reading all your objects, writing them, understanding all the calls that are passed from the client. Then we have a remote reference layer. And this is essentially just the semantics for the invocation. It understands about the data types you're passing. You're going to be going kind of backwards and forwards and passing critical data such as the unique IDs, because this is how RMI communicates. Don't think it communicates in the same way as web services. We actually need to know the method names. You actually need to use keys, and we're going to look at that in more detail shortly. And then obviously you're going to have your transport layer. RMI communicates over TCP/IP. And on top of that sits Sun's proprietary stream-based connection, the Java Remote Method Protocol. Not too interested in that today. And we've obviously got to have the transport layer on the client side. We're going to have the remote reference again, which is all semantics for the invocation. And then there's a slight difference here. This is the stub. And again, this does the marshalling and unmarshalling of all the calls where you would